Write your heart out.
Hey, I'm Kayla Ogden.
And I'm Rachel Sear.
And we're here doing a podcast about our writing journey. So, Rachel, do you want to start by just kind of talking about where you're at in your writing?
Sure. So I have always loved to write. English was the only class I would show up for in school. And every time my friends have copy or something they need for work, I'm their go-to person. I have a 6 and 5-year-old. And when they started going to school full time, I was thinking about what I wanted to do with myself and figured writing might be fun. I wanted to go to school and learn something new, but I wanted it to be something I was really interested in. So I always wanted to write a book or put together a series of essays, and this was the best way to start taking a creative writing course. I put together my first short story, and I have a lot of imposter syndrome, but I'm trying to work it out. What about you?
Yeah. I just want to say one thing about that, though, is that it seems like this short story that you put together, this isn't the first thing that you've written. And being at CSM and doing this creative writing course, I think you've been writing secretly something.
Yeah.
That you have a little work in progress that you don't like to talk about, but it seems like you were writing a little bit before you got in the creative writing class. Is that true?
Yes.
What do you do? Like, what does that look like? This is my impression of what you're doing.
Sure.
You are building a world. You have a character.
I do.
That you know really well now.
Carolyn.
And Carolyn is in this short story that you performed yesterday. There was like a contest where she submitted her short story, and out of over 60 applicants, they only chose like a dozen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Rachel's story was chosen. This was across the entire college. That was cool. And we'll get into what happened with that. But you have this other thing, right?
Okay, yes. So I've been working on a novel for a while.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's so ridiculous to say that because, like, who just is working on a novel? But then, like, how writers are working on novels.
Yeah.
But then calling myself a writer, I have such like a attachment to being a baker and my past life profession.
Yeah.
That saying I'm a writer too almost feels gluttonous in this like weird way. Like, oh, I'm a writer and a baker, and I don't know, it just feels gluttonous, I think is the best word.
Oh.
But no, I have created a whole world for this Carolyn. And then I also started this other book about her mom, Dana. Like,
a whole other book?
They're kind of coinciding. I can't tell if they'll like merge or like if maybe this would be like a series of books on the entire family. Because they all have their own outlines and backstories.
Oh my God.
But it feels like I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah.
See, how do you know what you're doing? Oh, wait, can you talk about yourself for a second?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because how did you know what you were doing?
Oh, God. I mean, okay, so for me, I have been writing since I've been creatively writing since I could write. It started with poetry, and then there was sermons when I was a teenager.
Sermons?
Yeah. I got really religious as a teen, like Protestant Christian, and I would give sermons. Like I would go to different schools and speak at churches and stuff. So I would write sermons. And then after that, I would write spoken word slam poetry and do poetry slams, which I find really cringy and embarrassing now.
I mean, the look on your face definitely said that.
Yeah, I went through that phase, which was actually really fun. And then I tried to write a book when I first landed in San Francisco like 10 years ago. I didn't know what I was doing, so it was just trash. And then after kids got old enough that they were in care a little bit during the day, so that would have been 3 years ago, I started writing in my garden, and I just started in earnest to try to write a novel. I've been learning as much as I can, and I've just taken courses, and I've just all on the internet or reading books, and I have learned and grown so much. And then a couple months ago, I finally finished a novel.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And I feel like it's like my biggest accomplishment in my life. It is not an easy thing to do, but don't ask my mother because she thinks she does not get why it's hard. She's like,
Oh,
because she was visiting me once and I was asking her to take care of my daughter, like, can you watch my daughter so that I can, I'll just say her name, Cassidy. Can you watch Cassidy so that I can write? Because I'm working on this book. And so I kept asking her and she kept doing it. And then one day she just said to me, she's like, I don't get why this is so hard for you to write this book and why you're so like challenged by it. She's like, write a book, print it out, roll it up, put it in a bottle, throw it out to sea, and then someone will find it and publish it.
wow.
And I was like, what are
a
you
romantic
even
idea.
talking about? But it's just a thing of you really, until you start looking into it, a lot of people don't realize how many people actually write books.
Totally.
And how hard it is to get published, even if you've written a good book, because publishing is an industry.
Right.
Right. And so like publishers, everybody in publishing cares about the art to some degree or another. I believe that. But at the end of the day, there's a bottom line and you need to make money in order to keep the whole thing going. Essentially, I've written this book. Now I'm trying to find an agent. I'm obsessed with writing. I'm obsessed with the craft and reading. And I just want to talk about it all the time. So I'm so glad that I discovered Rachel's dirty little secret that she's been writing. She hasn't been telling anybody about it because of her imposter syndrome, which is fucked.
Yeah, and the reason we started talking about it was because I wrote this short story, and I was thinking of submitting it to the school thing, and I knew you had written this book, and I was like, well, can you just read it to make sure it's not horrible? And then you helped me edit it in a really very profoundly helpful way. Like it was extremely helpful. And I mean, to the point that whittled it down to an abridged version that is what I read yesterday. And thank God, it's so good. I love it. I love how you helped me and I love the things that you added to it. And I love how much we've been able to talk about it.
Yeah.
It is really fun to talk about.
Me too.
I feel like it's a little nerdy and it is.
Yeah.
I don't even know why is it a dirty little secret. In class a few weeks ago, they were talking about how people will publish under pen names and how some of the people were saying oh, that's so weird. Why wouldn't you want to take credit for your work? And I was like, I fully understand that. If I could just write anonymously, that would feel so much better to me. And then I don't know why that is, but it almost feels too vulnerable. I think that's why I don't like poetry, is it feels too vulnerable.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Why you don't like reading it or writing it?
Poetry?
Yeah.
Oh, both. God, poetry. Ugh.
Oh my God, that is so funny. Did you tell that to your class?
I definitely did.
Oh, you poo-pooed their yum-yum.
Yeah.
I learned that phrase from Rachel. It means, just don't shit on stuff that other people, it had never occurred to me before. It took me a long-ass time to realize that if you poo-poo somebody's yum-yum, they don't like that and they don't like you. It's not nice. It hurts people's feelings. It gives them a bad taste in their mouth. If they're like, oh my God, Katy Perry went up to space and she is such an inspiration. Did you hear her speech? And you're like, oh, her speech was nonsensical. I can't even deal. It's hilarious. They're not going to.
They won't like it.
They won't like that.
No.
So if you don't care if people like you or not, if a certain person likes you or not, I mean, and what you care about more is just being authentic and telling the truth and sharing your opinion, whatever, then go for it. But if you are sort of trying to be gentle and likable or make a good impression, just don't poo-poo the yum-yum.
It's true.
But it sounds like you did poo-poo the yum-yum at your...
No, I didn't say poetry sucks. I just said that it feels too vulnerable and it feels scary. Honestly, I was just said it feels scary to me. I'm scared that I will misunderstand someone else's poetry. That if someone tells me that they wrote something and I interpret it wrong, that feels scary to me. Then if I write something and someone interprets it wrong, then it's I bared my soul and you're stupid. But also I feel like poetry is often so serious. And the poem that I had to write, or that I wrote in class that was well received, but it was about a flamingo and beating up a flamingo. And it was supposed to be funny. And it was funny. I think few people understood that it was supposed to be funny, but then a lot of people took it very seriously, and they were like, oh, well, this is you protecting your daughter against the world that is imposing the pink princess vibe. And like,
Whoa.
they really took it to a level that I was like, yes, sure. I don't want to tell you you're wrong because that makes me sound amazing.
Yeah.
But also, like, I was just trying to make in it. I literally said I was going to kick out its snobby knees.
Oh, you wanted to, in the poem, you were beating up the flamingo? I thought a flamingo was beating up another flamingo.
No. It was, I'm at the zoo with my daughter in this poem. I'll read it at some point if you want.
Yeah.
I'm at the zoo with my daughter. We're looking at the flamingo, and I'm imagining it attacking us, and then I have to kill it.
Oh.
And then describe the plague mask beak of this flamingo. And like,
The plague masks that they wore in the plague.
exactly.
Ooh.
I feel like I really tried to use imagery. And
Yeah.
I tried my hardest, and it was just, I found it more amusing than anything else. And then I felt like, am I making fun of them at that point? Then I felt like an asshole. Like, I don't even know what was happening in my, there was too many things happening in my head about poetry.
Whoa. And also, I think a flamingo would be hard to kill because its neck is so wobbly.
I know, that's in there too.
I don't even know what would happen if you, I don't know what would happen if you attacked a flamingo, but now I feel like you've given it a lot of thought and I might want to hear that poem at some point.
They can drink boiling water. Flamingos are fucking wild.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
They
weird.
can drink.
They're scary. I'm actually legitimately, I'm not into flamingos.
Wow.
I'm not
Okay,
but-
girl, that's my favorite bird.
Oh, what?
Yes, it always has been. Literally. It literally always
No.
has been.
Okay, I'll read the poem to you. Maybe next
Jeez.
episode. Next.
Wait, does that mean something?
I feel like it's a good thing. We're bringing
That you hate it
a
and
yin
I
and
love it.
yang, a yin and yang.
Yeah,
situation.
okay.
I'm not trying to yuck your yum yum.
Oh, damn. Oh my God. Maybe we should call the podcast Yuck Yucks and Yum Yums. But it doesn't sound like
spoken word.
It doesn't.
The spoken word. Yum yuck. Okay.
So, yeah.
I'll go there.
Let me say, so Rachel writes this story and she sends it to me and it has such a great voice. And it's just interesting to read somebody's work that's your friend that is just like very different than yours. And even though you're just getting than mine, and even though you're just getting started, I feel like voice is something that it can't be taught. Like I feel like your voice as a writer is something that you discover as you work on your craft.
Like it's a little bit of the X factor.
Yeah.
For an actor is like the X factor is the voice for writing.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that.
And I feel like it's individual and yeah. So anyway, so you have it. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say you have it or you don't. I think everybody has it, but some people have a harder time discovering.
Sure.
Anyways, you got it already. So that was really cool. And then the other part was I've never actually written a short story, but I really, really want to. That's what I want to get into now. But she did this thing where all of the themes came back around. You know, it's like you're reading. And then at the end, you have that moment like so satisfying because you're like, I see what she did there. I see what she did there. So I loved that. And I took all of my things that I've learned about writing over the last 5 years, all of the like best practices that I know, and I used that to just quickly cut it down because it's not my work. So it was just really easy to just kill all those darlings. I'm just like, cut. And I cut a lot of good stuff. And that was hard because I was like, I'm cutting her voice. But at the end of the day, I think we got somewhere where it was a good mix, but I do miss your version. Like, I don't think that the version that I did is better in every way at all.
Sure.
We were doing it for time. She had 5 minutes.
I had 5 minutes. Yeah.
To read it.
I don't feel like you cut out my voice. I still feel like it's my story. You know, like I do personally prefer the longer version.
Yeah.
But I think that everything that was needed is there. You know? Like I feel like you're still getting all of the chewable pieces. You still get a meal out of what came of it. I still feel like it's my story, and I still feel like you get to know. I just feel like you kind of just don't get to know the characters as much.
Yeah.
But that's what happens in 5 minutes. You know, like there's no story you can tell in 5 minutes where you get to know somebody.
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I mean, otherwise the full 5 minutes would be getting to know them.
Right. It would just be like a character study.
Right.
Yeah. And you were telling like a story, like something that happened to these two people. So I want to say more great stuff about it, but And I want to talk about what it was like to watch you do it. But then I'm like, well, if I say too, maybe you should just read it.
Sure. This is the story, the abridged version that Kayla really helped me cut down. It's called The Compliment, and it was a prompt that my substitute professor gave. One day, he was just like, write a story about when a character receives a compliment that throws off their entire day. And then this came out of me very quickly, and this is the 5-minute version. Okay. Whew. Tessa and I are standing in the dairy aisle. Not the good dairy with the cellophane-wrapped cheeses and the individually printed labels, but the shitty dairy. The packages of shredded and sliced cheese line the unenclosed refrigerated shelves in front of us. The way my 10-year-old girl is choosing her cheese is astounding. She inspects each package with tenderness. Perhaps she's trying to choose the cheese her dad would love most. I often find her standing at the kitchen counter, rolling cheddar or provolone into tiny scrolls, a habit of her dad's that once annoyed me. I rub my arms as I wait for her to pick, but I smile knowing she will roll her scrolls and think of her dad. Havarti? Oh, wow, I tease. Recently, she's been going with provolone or Swiss. Should I go with something else? She looks at me as though she's done something wrong. Oh, I was just joking, babe. I try to soothe her, and Tessa bites her lip, setting the Havarti down with its kin. Her hands are shaking. Since the accident, our moments of ease are few and far between, and the little things that make Tessa anxious keep catching me off guard. I get the chills from the refrigeration, and I lean into them with dramatics to keep the mood light. The tremor runs through my arms, and I let out a big ooh, shaking my whole body with a tiny hop. I refuse to let our fun day get ruined, and it works. Silliness is my eldest love language, and she giggles. I bump her booty with my own, and as I reach to retrieve the cheddar she selected, our shopping cart is pushed into my right hip, throwing off my balance, and I domino into Tessa. Oh my God, I yelp as I steady my daughter. I whip around to see who was so oblivious as to hit us and find the polydent grin framed by overly rouged cheeks, her blue-tinted eyebrows lifted, and every inch of her crepey-skinned face is filled with delight. It's our neighbor, Jan. She had bumped our cart on purpose, and she looks pleased as can be. She thinks she's funny. Ah, Jan, you scared the shit out of me. I give her a theatrical gasp and hold my hand at my heart. She wants to be funny? I can give her that, you old hag. Oh, I'm sorry, honey. Jan shuffles around her cart and gently squeezes my shoulder. She lets her hand linger. I didn't mean to give you a start. Before Chris and I had kids, Jan would pop over to bring us her garbage. Part of an old tea set that she was sure we could use, a rusty pizza cutter, an old set of candlesticks that just needed a good polish. I mused with Chris that her own home must be bursting at the seams. Once the kids were born, it evolved into baby items, including a very used bassinet, a random Amazon box filled with old baby bottles, a swing with a missing mobile. Chris threw the junk directly into our trash bin, but the items were magically regurgitated onto our doorstep. No wonder Jan didn't want them, we would joke to the kids. They were haunted. Chris started waiting until dawn of trash day to put whatever odd item we were gifted directly into Jan's own bins across the street. Trash day became our date night, and we would watch her bins get tipped into their respective ecology tucks. A dirty martini for me, an old-fashioned for him, and a clink of glasses to our own cleverness. After the accident, Jan started bringing casseroles, and I can't bring myself to throw away a hot dish. Don't throw it away, Mama, it'll haunt us, Tessa shouts, and her siblings fall into fits of giggles. If I did toss it, something tells me it would actually be on our doorstep the next morning. In the dairy aisle, I step away from Jan and her hand drops from my shoulder. Tessa pretends to study the cheese in her hand behind me. You look great, Jan smiles even wider, and I'm so glad to see you're done with the wallowing. What the fuck, Jan? I think as I purse my lips. Did Tessa hear her? She had. She's turned away, and I can feel her energy hit the floor. My resentment towards Jan is overwhelming. I think of my therapist, and I take a deep breath. We'll see you around, Jan. Tess, grab the cheese you want, babe. Let's go. Jan calls after us. I'll come by later with a lasagna. No need, I wave over my shoulder. I give Tessa a nudge. Hey, you heard her. We look great. Maybe it must be the petties we just got. Tessa looks up at me with a hint of a smile on her face, so I proceed. Little does she know, wallowing is what gives us our glow. I toss my hair dramatically, and this gets her, and she laughs. We head down the cookie aisle, and I give a small nod as Tessa picks up her favorite mint Milanos, a special treat she had always loved sharing with her dad. Are you getting a treat? Tessa asks as she puts her still little hand in mine, and we walk towards the registers. You're my treat. I stop the cart abruptly and grab her into my arms while pretending to nibble at her neck. Her laughter's infectious, and I lose my balance, tipping into the aisle cap display of potato chips, knocking at least a dozen bags down. And we're causing a scene. The best scene. People are staring, and I see Jan as one of the rubberneckers that's emerged. I won't let the irony of her watching us ruin this moment for me. She was one of the rubberneckers that had passed Chris' car as it was overturned and crushed on the side of the highway. She was the one that told me that a car just like my husband's was surrounded by medics, all while looking down my driveway and pointing out that he hadn't come home from work yet. She was the one that pushed her way into the worst day of my life, and here she is now, looking on while we laugh and try to make the most of what's left. We're just wallowing, Tessa yells at Jan, and we fall back into cackling. That night at 6 p.m. on the dot, the doorbell rang. I came out of my bedroom in my robe, drying my hair with a towel, to find Tessa shoveling lasagna out of a dish, scoop by scoop, down the garbage disposal. She's grinning at me just like her dad used to, as she says, "I'm just making sure it doesn't haunt us."
I love it so much.
I love it too.
Oh my
I'm very proud of
God.
it.
Yes, you should be. It gives me Gilmore Girls kind of vibes.
Sure.
You know, the sassy mom and the sassy daughter
Totally.
kind of thing. And I just love them. I was wondering, is Caroline, that's the mother, the unnamed protagonist of the short story.
Yep.
Are you Carolyn?
No.
No?
So I had a whole thing about this, and I actually talked to my therapist about it.
Wow.
Because Carolyn, as a character in the world that I've created for the book, the bigger book that I have been chipping away at, her husband's dead, and I had like a full crisis where, like, if I'm writing about this woman with a dead husband who still has a good life, is it a fantasy that people in my life going to read this as a fantasy where I don't want my husband?
Oh.
And my therapist, of course, was like, that exact reaction.
Oh.
Like, oh. And I was like, I just, like, I have a very self-deprecating sense of humor, and I often, make jokes about my husband and our relationship, and I highlight the imperfections because it makes me feel funny. I feel funny when I do that. And I often think that people think I don't like my husband because of that. And I do. I love him. Like, I don't not like him. So I think that there's just like this insecure part of me where if I make those kinds of jokes and then I kill off my husband in my first book, I had to like really detach myself from the idea of being Carolyn.
Yes.
Even though she's a baker also, and like she has the essence of me, but I don't feel like she's me. Like, I feel very strongly that she's not me.
Yes. Okay, good. Yeah. Because, I mean, I think that she's similar to you,
Right.
but in a really good way. And I'm glad that you do have some distance. I think that's like really good creatively and all that stuff. But I can tell that, like, the way that she is with her daughter, are you kind of that way with your daughter?
Yeah.
And is that how you feel about your daughter? Like, oh, she's so little, and like,
Absolutely.
I want to make everything fun for her.
Totally.
I feel like something that you captured really well was just the feeling of being, I'm like that too with my kid. Like, say I'm at the grocery store with my kid and I'm grocery shopping. A quarter of my mind is on grabbing the things, putting them in the cart, and 75% of my mind is on, how's Cassidy doing? How's Sawyer doing?
Totally.
How do they feel? What's going on with them? Where are they? What do they want? What do they need? Like, yeah, making the experience okay for them or fun or
Totally.
like whatever. It's like your mind is like always kind of there because you just love them so much.
Yeah, I'd say I do majority of my grocery shopping alone because I need that efficiency. Because if they're with me, it's an activity we're doing together. So like that is definitely captured in this.
Yeah, they're like being together.
Right, which I think is why she's so upset by running into Jan, because it's like
She's like,
ruining the activity.
You're fucking up my day with my daughter. Yeah. So I went to the college to see you read this, and that college is gorgeous. It's like on a hill.
Yeah.
Everything is pristine. It seems so new. It's not really. And yeah, you're on this hill and you can look out over the bay, and it feels so good to be there. And then I didn't realize, but it was outdoors that you were reading. It was out on like this big, nice
I didn't realize
veranda
it was gonna be
thing.
outdoors either. It was cold.
Yeah. And they chose Rachel to go first. Why do you think they chose you to go first?
I don't know. I had like a bit of a crisis about it yesterday morning, because I was like, well, maybe they're having me go first, so they're getting the shitty one out of the way. And then I was like, no, maybe they're having me go first because they want to make sure that I'm heard, because people might be dwindling out. I was like, I don't know. Like, so I was like playing both sides of feeling really good about myself and then like totally shitting on myself. I don't know. both of the professors who I've met before were so really into my story. One of them came up afterwards and said that he really wants to make sure it gets published.
Oh my God.
Which is really sweet. But he said it and I was, where? Literally my reaction was like, where?
What did he say when you said where?
He kind of looked, I mean, there was other people there that he couldn't, I think my reaction threw him off.
Oh my God, that's so funny. You're like, where would I do it?
Right.
Okay, well, you just don't know. Like, there's tons of literary journals that,
I think he probably meant the school magazine, you know, like,
which is also cool.
yeah, it is cool. It was sweet that he was into my.
Yes. So I think I know why they chose you to go first, because when you experience art, they say it about like a song, like classical song, is what you remember and what resonates with you is the first note and the last note. So I think you want to start off strong and then you want to end strong. I wasn't there for the last person, but I just think that they wanted to start off strong right out of the gate. You know, your story is really accessible for everyone listening. It's funny, but it has a lot of heart. So I think that was probably the choice, because I listened to maybe 6 other people, and they were all really good. These were people who were chosen among like over 60 applicants who are obviously people who are learning to write, or they're writers in some capacity. So they're like the cream of the crop. I'm sorry to those, if anyone's listening, who put their story in, it didn't get chosen. Art is so subjective, and just keep trying. But yeah, I thought it was really good. You made me cry, and you started crying a little bit. That's what you were scared of. You were like, I was very scared to cry.
Yeah. Luckily, people were like actually laughing out loud or like making like gasping, you know, like reacting.
Yes.
And that took me out of my head enough that I didn't start crying. So that was good.
Yes. Oh, yeah. People were.
You had me add at the end, or you suggested at the end, adding that Tessa's face looks just like her dad's when she's putting the food down the garbage disposal. And I feel like when I added that added like such an emotional little charge for me at the last sentence. And that was what I was really worried was going to, you know.
That you were just going to like fall to your knees. Well, when I sob into your hands in front of everybody.
When I practiced, every time I would choke on those words, because it was like, that really... You do see your spouse's face in your kid, or the baby daddies.
Yeah.
You see that.
Oh, you really do.
In our case, our husbands, but.
Yeah, that's what I think is really can be fucked up. That's actually a theme in my book.
Oh, yeah.
Because the protagonist, the way she came into this world, like her father, I guess I don't want to say too much, and I also don't want to trigger anyone, but there's just like this horrible way that she was conceived. And so her mother sees that man in her, and it affects their relationship. Like, can you imagine? I feel like this is a real thing that probably people would not want to talk about. You know, a mother wouldn't want to say, or a father wouldn't want to say, if they had a really brutal divorce, they fucking hate the person that they conceived this child with. Obviously, they love the child, but you literally see that person in your child. It is unreal. It is wild how our genetics can transfer things like mannerisms,
Totally,
like tone of voice, preferences, things that
should be nurture, not nature.
Yes.
But it is somehow nature. It's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like you can have a baby with someone, not see that person again, and their gesture will pop up. All of a sudden your kid is, perching their chin on their fist and looking out the window, and you're like, holy shit.
Totally.
You are your dad reincarnated.
Yeah.
I believe in that. It's crazy.
So I didn't tell you yet, but I read the first chapter of your book.
Oh, girly.
And that, now knowing that the dad, well, obviously I don't even know what happened, but now knowing that, I'm like, that freaking totally tracks as to this relationship that's very clearly like a tension that's there, that's not explained yet in the first chapter.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a tension between the mom and daughter, clear as day.
Yeah.
And very like, what is happening? Like, it makes you want to know more about like what is happening in this dynamic. And so I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to keep reading and like knowing like, why are these women like this? And like, it immediately made me feel for the daughter, and it made me question the mom so much.
Yeah.
So chapter 1. I mean, like, we're ticking some boxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. You know, you toil away at this thing and you don't even know if it's good. We can't go off on this tangent yet because we need to talk about how your professor said something cool.
Oh, yes. Okay. I have obviously have mentioned, and we talked about it a little bit, the imposter syndrome and not knowing when am I a writer? I don't know. That feels weird. And so yesterday at the end of this event, there's one guy who has been the president of the creative writing club at CSM. And I had never met him before because the kids' school schedule doesn't work, so I can't go to creative writing club. But he read a portion of his novel that he's been writing, and it was really awesome. And it was just about him as it's him as a tween, 11, like it's like a coming of age sort of story, I guess.
I love that shit.
And in this chapter that he read from his work, it's him and his friend who are 11, and they smoke their first cigarette with like a 14-year-old boy who, you know, like takes the safety off the lighter. So it's a big flame, and they're trying to play it cool as 11-year-olds, like, oh yeah, we smoke all the time, but they had never smoked before. And like, he really captures that. I was that 11-year-old, you know, like
Me too.
I totally felt it, and it was beautifully written. And afterwards, this guy's going to go to Berkeley or Cal or so, I don't know, something. And so the teachers wanted to kind of honor him as having done this creative writing club, and he's gotten into this writer's ruckus 5 times, like with 5 different pieces before in his time at CSM, and they wanted to really, you know, applaud him. And they were saying that when he first started there, that he was really timid to say that he wouldn't even say he was a writer. And then as like a year or 2 in, especially after he was in the ruckus, he started playing with it and being like, well, you know, when someone would say, what do you do? He'd be like, I'm a writer, and like kind of throw it in there. It's like an undertone. And then the professor was saying that like now when he introduces himself, he goes, I'm a writer. And like it's part of who he is. And they were saying that progression was really amazing to watch as professors. And you could tell this guy, his pride, and he does think of himself as a writer now. And I really watched that and kind of took it to heart in this, do I think of myself as a writer? No, I'm not ready to say that yet. Mm-hmm. But I like that it was such a natural progression for this guy. And like, where does it, you know, how does that journey, do
I call myself
do you
a writer?
call yourself a writer?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I have this book, and I'm querying agents. Mm-hmm. I've only queried a few, but I don't have an agent yet to champion my work and to, you know, try to sell it to a publisher. So I don't have that thing that sometimes it's like a key, right? Like, even if you publish a book and even if it doesn't win any awards or it doesn't make a bestsellers list or it doesn't even sell very many copies, you still have this thing to like hang your hat on. Sure. It's like, I'm a writer. This is the evidence. And I don't have that yet. And I think it's just a personal, at this stage in our writing journeys, which I feel like isn't that far apart. It is I'm a little bit ahead.
Yeah, you are.
I feel like I'm like a year or 2 ahead because I finished my book.
Sure.
I could totally not call myself that and it would also be legitimate, but I'm just making that choice for myself because it was hard at first, especially before I finished my book. I think it was hard. Yeah. It was harder because I had a lot of false starts.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't think that there's any rush. Yeah, I think it'll come to you when it comes to you.
I feel like finishing something will definitely be helpful.
Yeah.
Or I guess I finished a short story, but finishing something more meaty.
Yeah. So I think that I don't know how long we've been talking, but I think it's been a while because it's 10:21.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Okay, cool. Well, this was great. And there's so many more things that I want to talk about.
Yeah, me too.
So in terms of the podcast, I'm just talking to whoever you are that's listening right now. What we're kind of planning to do is we're just writing friends and we're just going to support each other and talk about the things that we're learning, the things that are inspiring us and what's going on in our writing life. We won't always be reading the things that we've written and it's not going to be really like lessons or anything like that. But what I want is for you, the person listening to this, to feel like you're sitting here with us and just getting to nerd out and chat about writing because a lot of people don't do it and they don't want to talk about it. They think it's like normal ass people think that this is really boring. But I have a feeling that you, whoever you are that's listening, really into it and and feel like you're here and like, yay, I'm part of like a writing group. Like I've always wanted to have friends around me that we can just sit and talk about these things and you don't see their eyes, glass over.
Totally.
And I have a couple of people like that in my life, but they're just sort of scattered around the earth. So just to have somebody in town that's doing this too and that I adore so much, it's just like, it's a dream come true. So we're going to keep on doing it. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited.
Okay.
We're going to keep going.
All right. Talk to you guys later.